Whenever you want to open any website, you just have to type its URL like youtube.com and you're there. But have you ever wondered how do we actually get there? Well, there are a lot of steps involved in this. And one of them is DNS or domain name server, which is one of the first steps. So let's understand what is DNS and how does it work. DNS stands for domain name server. It is a way of converting domain names into IP addresses. We'll talk more about it, but let's first understand why did we actually need it. So back in the old days when internet was still small and there weren't many sites, people could remember IP addresses of websites, which are just some numbers for a normal person. But as the internet grew further, it was getting hard to remember so many numbers. I mean, for each site you have different IP address to remember. So people wanted easy to remember words like some kind of names. Because our brains are not so good with remembering numbers, so domain names came into existence. It used to be a simple text file which was managed by network administrators. It simply had IP address of every host on internet, and each computer had a copy of host file. And whenever new site or host was added to internet, everyone had to update their host file manually. But of course, with the increasing sites, it wasn't going to work. How many hosts could someone possibly add? As of 2017, there were more than 332 million domain names. So this had to be resolved. So DNS or domain name servers were invented to solve this problem. And now directory or hostname that matches the name to numbers isn't located in one place. A single directory would not make sense in this situation anyway. So like internet itself, this directory is distributed around the world, which is stored on domain name servers. They communicate with each other to get you to the desired web page. The host file still exists, which you can actually edit to prank your friends. Here is the location of host file for Windows and Linux. Anyway, let's move further. So there are two types of DNS, recursive and authoritative. When your computer wants to find IP address of any domain that you typed in, it makes request to recursive DNS server. This server is usually operated by your internet service provider, and this server knows which other DNS server it needs to ask to find the IP address. And the server that have the needed information is called authoritative server. So this is how it actually works. First, your computer asks IP address of, let's say, google.com. This request is sent to your ISP, which first checks this name server if it knows the address. If it does, then you get to the google.com. But if it doesn't know the address, name server redirects it to one of the root name servers to see if it knows the IP address. If root name server doesn't know the IP address, it returns a list of authoritative servers for .com domain. Because Google have top level domain which is .com, then it finds it there and returns back to the name server of ISP. Then your ISP send it back to your computer. This process is a bit more complicated, so I skipped some parts for the sake of simplicity. So does it have to do it all over again when you want to visit the same site again? Well, not really. There is something known as DNS caching. That information is stored on your computers, so it doesn't have to access DNS server again to resolve the name for IP address. So there are some security concerns with DNS. I'd say it's a topic of its own when it comes to security. One of the reasons that you may not be anonymous even after using VPN is that your ISP may still be resolving domain name for you, so they still know what requests you're making. You can come around this by changing your DNS server, but still you're going to request someone for those sites. So becoming anonymous on internet is more complicated than you think. Anyway, that's another topic for another day. I'll make video on how to change your DNS server, and you can do that in case you don't trust your ISP. But this is it for this video, and see you guys in the next one.